Today we're going to be learning about triangle classification. When we classify triangles, we're going to give the triangles two different names. Just like when you are called something, you have a first name and a last name. Triangles also have a first name and a last name. We're going to classify triangles by their angles and by their sides. We've already learned about angles, so I'm just going to take a minute to review some angle recognition with you. Acute angles, they measure less than 90 degrees. Right angles measure exactly 90 degrees, and obtuse angles measure greater than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. If you notice, we're missing one last type of angle that we learned about, and that would be straight angles. But we're never going to classify a triangle by straight angles, because if I just have a straight line, then my triangle won't ever be closed, which does not make a triangle shape. So I'm classifying my triangles by its angles. And the next way to classify a triangle is by its sides. We have equilateral, isosceles, and scalene. I'm going to teach you a trick to remember how we're going to classify a triangle by its sides. We have equilateral triangles, and when I make the E for equilateral, you'll notice that it has 3 lines. That means it has 3 equal sides. Do you remember another way to say equal in math? You're right, it's congruent. Then we have isosceles triangles. The I in isosceles, if we use the same trick, has 2 straight lines. That means it has 2 equal or congruent sides. If you notice that the S in the word scalene does not have any straight lines across, that means it has no or 0 equal sides. Let's practice. The first triangle that we're going to classify looks like this. I know that you remember when we learned about angles, that angles are going to be shown with an angle of 2 rays and they meet at a vertex. Do you remember what it's called when the angle vertex has a perfect square inside of it? You're right, it's a right angle. So I want you to take a look at this triangle and notice it has a perfect right angle. It also has sides that have special tick marks on them. You're going to find the tick marks that match. How many sides match? 2. This side matches this side. So that means this triangle has 2 equal sides. If it has 2 equal sides, I'm going to call it a isosceles triangle. An isosceles triangle is one way to call it by its sides, but we're also going to call it by its angle. What type of an angle do you see? I see a right angle, but I also see 2 acute angles. We always classify a triangle by its largest angle. Is an acute angle or a right angle larger? Right. So this triangle is going to be known as an isosceles right triangle. Let's try another. Notice, all of our sides have the same tick mark. How would you classify this triangle? You're right, it's an equilateral triangle, and it has all acute angles. If all of the angles are acute, none of them are larger than 90 degrees, it's going to be known as an acute triangle. So this is an acute equilateral triangle. Take a look about this one. What do you think? This triangle has no equal sides because none of the sides match. What would you call it? It also has an acute angle, another acute angle, and an obtuse angle. Remember my hint, you always call a triangle by its largest angle. Which one's larger, acute or obtuse? Good, obtuse. This is going to be a scalene obtuse triangle. What do you think? You're right. Hopefully. It's an isosceles acute triangle. Next, what would you call it? This is going to be a right scalene triangle. It has a right angle and none of the sides match. This one looks a little bit different. It doesn't have the tick marks. But you can notice that two of the sides look congruent and the other side looks longer. Sometimes you're going to see that they don't have tick marks on there. I would call this a right isosceles triangle. What do you think about this one? Good, I see an obtuse angle, so it's going to be obtuse, and I don't think any of the sides are congruent. If I was using a ruler, I could be sure that none of the sides are congruent. None of my sides are congruent, it's a scalene triangle. One more thing that we learn about triangles is that all of the angles inside are going to measure 180 degrees. Can you predict what you think this last angle measure is? If this one equals 65 and this one equals 50, what do you think the measure of the last triangle, the last angle is? In order to figure that out, I would take 180 minus what is known, 65. When I take 180 minus 65, what'd you get? $115. Am I done? Nope. I need to take the remainder angle left. Minus 50 gives me 65. My mystery angle measures 65 degrees. Let's try another one. Let's use the same steps. This time, I'm only given the measurement of 1. They give me a box. I'm using my background knowledge to find the mystery one. What'd you get? If you got 50 degrees, you're right. This angle measures 90 degrees. This angle measures 40 degrees. 40 plus 90 gives me 130. If the entire triangle has 180 degrees, and two of the angles together measure 130, I know that my remainder is 50 degrees for my mystery angle. And the last one. Try it on your own. What'd you get? Did you get 80 degrees? Great.